Nike didn't just drop a commercial on Christmas Day. They fired a warning shot.
Well, a young fan of Caitlin Clark just received what she's calling the best Christmas present ever.
In 60 seconds, the biggest names in sports lined up to challenge a 22-year-old woman to do the impossible, and she made it look routine. But what most people missed is that this wasn't about trick shots or star power. It was a signal, a quiet announcement that the old rules of women's sports marketing are about to collapse. So why this moment and why her? Buried inside that ad is a roadmap to 2026, a plan that could turn Caitlin Clark into the most marketable female athlete on the planet and reshape how global sports brands are built. This isn't just a story about a contract or a campaign. It's about how one player forced an entire industry to rethink what's possible. And once you see what Nike is really doing, you'll realize this moment was never just advertising. It was the beginning of something much bigger. The Iowa driveway that changed everything came before the sold-out arenas, before city blocks wrapped with fans desperate for tickets. A sold-out crowd in Evanston for the Northwestern women's basketball game against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Before the broken records that rewrote league history books. Before Nike executives started having conversations about signature shoe franchises capable of generating hundreds of millions in revenue. There was a driveway in Des Moines, Iowa, and a skinny kid who refused to come inside no matter how many times her mother called her name. While other kids her age were inside playing video games, watching cartoons, or doing anything to escape the brutal Midwest winters, Caitlin Clark was outside shooting basketballs until she couldn't feel her fingers anymore. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't recreational activity. This was something closer to obsession, and it was taking root in ways nobody around her fully understood yet. The Iowa cold is a different kind of cold. It doesn't just chill you. It cuts through layers of clothing and settles into your bones. Temperatures drop below freezing for months at a time. The wind whipped across flat farmland with nothing to stop it. And in that environment, a young girl stood in her driveway, launching shot after shot while her fingers cracked and bled from the dry winter air. Her hands went numb, but she kept shooting. Her mother would open the back door and tell her dinner was ready, and Caitlin would beg for 10 more minutes. Those 10 minutes always turned into 30. 30 turned into an hour. The food went cold on the table while she worked on her release, her footwork, her range. Something inside her understood that the shots she was taking weren't just for tomorrow's game. They were for something much bigger, she couldn't quite see yet. But the driveway had a problem that bothered her constantly. The concrete was slanted, which meant the three-point arc was only complete on one side. For most kids, that would have been fine. Good enough. You practice with what you have and live with the limitations. But Caitlin wasn't wired like most kids. Every time she looked at that incomplete arc, it felt like a barrier, a restriction on what she could become. So she started working on her father, not asking once and accepting no for an answer, but begging, persistent, relentless, lobbying for him to tear up the grass on the other side of the driveway and pour more concrete so she could have a complete three-point line. Her dad looked at his daughter, saw the fire in her eyes, and recognized this wasn't going to stop until he said yes. Clark's dad, Brent, knew early, by the time she was 4, that his daughter had something special. They did it together. Father and daughter ripping up the lawn her mother had probably spent years maintaining, mixing concrete, pouring it themselves, smoothing it out until the surface was flat enough for basketball to bounce true. It wasn't a professional job. It wasn't pretty. But when they finished, Caitlin had what she needed. A complete three-point arc in her own backyard. A laboratory where she could experiment with distance, angle, and release. Without anyone watching, without any coach telling her what she should or shouldn't attempt. That Iowa driveway became the birthplace of something that would eventually change women's basketball forever. What happened next went against everything coaches teach young players about skill development. The conventional wisdom is clear. Work on fundamentals first. Master the layup before attempting the mid-range jumper. Perfect your free throw before pulling up from deep. High-percentage shots build confidence. Safe attempts develop muscle memory. You expand your range gradually, methodically, one step at a time. Caitlin threw all of that out the window. When she missed a shot from 15 feet, She didn't move closer to the basket like every other young player would. She stepped back to 18. When she started making those, she moved to 21, then 24, then the three-point line, then beyond it. Every failure became an invitation to try something harder. Every miss became motivation to expand what she believed was possible. Her father took her to see a WNBA game in Minnesota when she was young, and she came home a different person. She had watched professional women do things on a basketball court she didn't know were possible before. The range they shot from, the confidence in their movements, the way the crowd erupted when someone drained a shot from deep. Something crystallized in her mind during that trip. Caitlin returned to Iowa and immediately started practicing from distances that made no sense for a player her age and size. She wasn't trying to be confident. She wasn't even trying to be good. She was trying to be something that had never existed before. The neighbors probably thought she was crazy, the skinny girl launching shots from the absolute edge of the driveway, in weather that kept sensible people indoors. But those freezing morning sessions before school and those dark evening practices after homework was finished were building neural pathways and muscle memory coaches had never encountered. She was engineering her own revolution, one impossible shot at a time, and the world had no idea what was coming. The doubt became rocket fuel. Every level of basketball brought the same prediction. She's talented, but wait until she faces real competition. High school coaches looked at Caitlin and saw everything she wasn't. Too small for a forward position. Too slow for elite guard play. Not athletic enough for the highest levels of the sport. The scouting reports read like rejection letters. Limited ceiling. Relies too heavily on range. Won't translate against better defenders. The doubt followed her everywhere. Whispered in hallways. Written into evaluations that questioned whether her game could survive against players who were bigger, faster, and more physically gifted. But here's what those coaches didn't understand. They thought doubt would discourage her.
Iowa head coach Lisa Bluter had a front row seat for Clark's record-breaking career. Lisa knew Caitlin would be special.
Instead, it became the most powerful fuel source she'd ever discovered. Every time someone told Caitlin she couldn't compete at the next level, she went back to that driveway and started shooting from even more impossible distances. Rejection wasn't something that defeated her. Rejection was information, data about exactly what she needed to prove wrong. Her high school teammates watched in amazement as she made shot after shot from places on the court where attempting a jumper looked like poor decision-making. But Caitlin wasn't making poor decisions. She was expanding the definition of what a good shot looked like. The first time college scouts showed up to watch her play, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. This wasn't normal basketball. This was something entirely different. She was launching attempts from areas of the court most players wouldn't even consider, and she was making them at percentages that defied statistical logic. Coaches started calling other coaches. Word spread through recruiting circles about this kid from Iowa who played like the three-point line was just a suggestion. Division I programs that had initially passed on her started making phone calls. But by then, Caitlin had already made her choice. Iowa. Home. The place where she'd built herself in that driveway. The pattern repeated at every transition point in her career, and it still hasn't stopped. College analysts said her high school success wouldn't translate against Division I defenses. She broke records. WNBA scouts predicted professional defenders would shut down her deep shooting entirely.
The WNBA draft is this Monday, and Iowa star Caitlin Clark is expected to be the #1 pick. Here to comment is Caitlin Clark.
She generated $36 million in economic impact for Indianapolis while breaking 62 league records in a single season. The criticism never changes. Wait until she faces better competition. Wait until the game speeds up. Wait until she plays against real athletes. And Caitlin's response never changes either. She just keeps making shots from distances that prove the doubters wrong. The commercial that revealed everything. Nike doesn't drop commercials on Christmas Day by accident. That's prime real estate in the advertising world, reserved for their most important campaigns and most valuable athletes. When they chose December 25th to unveil the From Anywhere campaign featuring Caitlin Clark, they were making a statement about exactly where she ranks in their portfolio. This wasn't a women's basketball ad. This was a Nike ad. Period. The The kind of treatment usually reserved for LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and the small group of athletes who transcend their individual sports. Watch the commercial again and pay attention to the structure. Travis Kelce challenges her range. She drains the shot.
Travis Kelce will be. The question is, will it be 5 years from now because he just played his last game?
Jason Kelce questions whether she can hit from his spot. She buries it without hesitation. Travis Scott picks an impossible distance. Nothing but net. Michael Che tries to stump her. Same result. Every celebrity in the ad represents the same thing: doubt, skepticism, the assumption that there's some distance from which even Caitlin Clark can't score. And every single time, she proves them wrong with the same effortless confidence. Nike didn't create this narrative. They captured the exact dynamic that has defined her entire career. The genius of the campaign goes deeper than just showcasing her shooting ability. Nike's marketing team understood something crucial about Caitlin's psychology. Doubt isn't her weakness. Doubt is her superpower. When defenders give her space at the three-point line, she starts shooting from the logo. When they press her at the logo, she pulls up from 35 feet. Every adjustment opponents make becomes motivation for her to expand her range even further. The commercial mirrors this perfectly. Each challenge escalates. Each shot gets harder. And Caitlin responds to every escalation by making the impossible look routine. But the real message is in the final moments. A young girl watching, believing, understanding that from anywhere isn't just about basketball. It's about possibility. It's about a kid in Iowa or Indonesia or Ireland seeing someone who looks like them doing things that were supposed to be impossible and thinking, maybe I can do that too. Nike didn't sign Caitlin Clark because she makes long shots. They signed her because she represents something much bigger. The death of limitations. The end of the assumption that women's sports can't generate the same cultural impact as men's athletics. The From Anywhere campaign isn't selling shoes. It's selling a future Caitlin is actively building.
After the game, Caitlin autographed her game-worn shoes and gave them to Nora.
The numbers that shocked an industry. Let's talk about what Caitlin Clark actually did to the WNBA in her rookie season, because the numbers are almost impossible to believe. She generated $36 million in direct economic impact for Indianapolis. Not the league. Not women's basketball as a whole. One city. One player. $36 million. She accounted for nearly 27% of the entire league's economic impact for the 2024 season. That's not a star player. That's an economic engine operating at a scale the WNBA has never seen before. The viewership data tells an even more dramatic story. When Caitlin played, ratings spiked to levels that rivaled men's professional sports. Games featuring the Indiana Fever drew audiences the league hadn't seen in decades. Networks that had traditionally treated women's basketball as afterthought programming suddenly started fighting for broadcast rights. And when she got injured, the ratings dropped immediately, visibly, measurably. Missed 4 games with that groin injury. Playing 28 minutes tonight. The league discovered that having someone who could make shots from anywhere wasn't just entertaining. It was transformative for the entire business model. She broke 62 records in a season where she only played 13 games due to injury. Think about that for a moment. 13 games. 62 records. The statistical impact of her presence on the court was so overwhelming that even a partial season rewrote the league's record books. Assists, three-pointers, points, clutch performances, categories that had stood for years fell one after another. And she was just getting started. The full, healthy version of Caitlin Clark hasn't even arrived yet, and the numbers are already unprecedented. Industry analysts started using language they'd never applied to women's basketball before. Franchise player, league transformer, generational talent, marketing phenomenon. The conversation shifted from whether women's sports could be commercially viable to how quickly the infrastructure could scale to match the demand Caitlin was creating. Suddenly, the question wasn't whether anyone would watch women's basketball. The question was whether there were enough screens and streaming platforms to accommodate everyone who wanted to watch. Spring 2026. The launch that changes everything. Here's what everyone's been waiting to hear. Caitlin Clark's signature Nike shoe drops in spring 2026.
After the game, Caitlin autographed her game-worn shoes and gave them to Nora.
But calling it just a shoe launch misses the point entirely. This is the moment where women's basketball enters a new economic era. Industry experts like Nick DePaula are predicting the franchise could generate nine-figure revenue. That's not a typo, not millions, potentially billions over the lifetime of the partnership. The shoe is expected to become a top 5 signature franchise across all of basketball, men's and women's combined. Nike CEO Elliott Hill has been crystal clear about their approach. They're not rushing this release. Every detail matters: the logo, the design, the colorways, the marketing strategy, the grassroots activation. All of it has to be perfect because this isn't just another athlete endorsement. This is Nike's statement about the future of women's sports marketing. They're building something designed to last for decades, not just capitalize on a hot moment. Caitlin has been directly involved in every aspect of the development, ensuring the shoe represents exactly what she wants it to mean. The timing is strategic brilliance. By spring 2026, Caitlin will be fully healthy and back to dominating the WNBA. The league continues growing at unprecedented rates. Women's basketball viewership keeps breaking records with every passing season. The appetite for her return after the injury has created massive pent-up demand. Fans who watched her transform the game in 2024 are hungry for more. And Nike is positioning the shoe launch to capture that exact moment of maximum excitement. The From Anywhere commercial was the preview. The signature shoe is the main event. But here's where Caitlin's approach differs from every other signature athlete in history. Traditional endorsement deals focus on maximizing personal profit: sign the contract, do the photo shoots, cash the checks, build your individual brand as big as possible. Caitlin sees the opportunity completely differently. She's using this platform to expand opportunities for girls' basketball globally. Her stated goal isn't to make as much money as possible. It's to ensure that more and more young girls have access to the sport and believe they can be really good at it. The signature shoe becomes a tool for inspiration rather than just another product. The movement beyond the money. What makes Caitlin different from every other marketing phenomenon in sports history is what she plans to do with the platform she's building. The signature shoe launch connects directly with grassroots basketball programs around the world. The line will support international expansion efforts for women's basketball in countries where the sport barely exists. China, specifically, has been mentioned as a priority destination where she anticipates visiting to inspire young athletes. This isn't about building Caitlin Clark Incorporated. This is about using her visibility to pull the entire sport up with her. You can already see this philosophy in how she treats her teammates: Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hall, Kelsey Mitchell. Caitlin constantly highlights their contributions in interviews, uses her massive social media platform to bring attention to players who deserve more recognition, and deflects credit toward the team whenever possible. Most superstars at her level carefully manage their brand to stay at the center of every story. Caitlin actively works to expand the spotlight so it includes everyone around her. The signature shoe launch will follow this same pattern, lifting others while she rises. Nike has already launched her signature apparel collection, featuring hoodies and sweatpants with her CC logo. The items come in both adult and children's sizes, available on Nike's website and at sports retailers across the country.
First reported that Nike teamed up with federal investigators to shut down a suspected illegal counterfeiting operation that spanned.
But the apparel is just the foundation. The real economic transformation happens when the shoe drops. And suddenly, every young girl who dreams of playing basketball has a product that represents possibility. When kids put on Caitlin's signature shoes, they're not just wearing athletic gear, they're connecting to a movement that says you can make it from anywhere, no matter where you start. The bigger the revenue, the more resources become available for growing girls' basketball internationally. That's how Caitlin sees the numbers, not as personal wealth to be accumulated, but as opportunity to be deployed. Every shoe sold funds another clinic. Every commercial expands awareness to another market. Every record broken proves to another generation of young women that the ceiling everyone thought existed simply doesn't. The economics of women's basketball are shifting in real time. And Caitlin is directing that shift toward impact rather than accumulation. What started as a kid shooting alone in the Iowa cold has quietly grown into a moment that's forcing an entire industry to confront what it ignored for decades. This isn't just the rise of a generational player. It's the unraveling of old assumptions about value, visibility, and who gets to be marketed as inevitable. A commercial, a contract, a season on the horizon. Each one is a signal that something much larger is being set in motion. As 2026 approaches, women's basketball isn't asking for permission anymore. It's stepping into a future built on belief, precision, and proof that the impossible was never impossible at all. And when the next wave of players pulls up from way beyond the line, in driveways, gyms, and cold concrete corners across the country, the real question will be this: who will be ready when from anywhere stops being a slogan and becomes the standard that changes the game forever? Changes the game forever. Changes the game forever.